Hello and welcome to another BlenderWiz video tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to create the image in front of you using hair particles. Let's get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the modeling part. It's not too complicated. Really, it's just a plane with some hair particles. So let's go ahead and create our plane, and I'm going to just scale that up to about 2.5 Blender units, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and then hit 2 to select the second render layer, hit Shift A and create a circle, and only have it set for 6 vertices. That will by default be 32, but we only want a hexagon. And then we just take all of these vertices here, select them all, and then hit E and Z to extrude it along the Z-axis and make it fairly tall. Then hit F to fill that, and it will create an n-gon, which is fine. I normally don't like them, but in this case, since we really won't be doing anything to it, it will be fine for what we're doing. And then, let's see, you want to make sure that your origin is right on the bottom, because that is where it will be coming out of this plane. So now I'm going to hit 1, and that will put us on the first render layer. And let's go ahead and create a new particle system. Oops, there you go. So this is going to be pretty simple. Let's go ahead and set it to hair, and of course this will be really tall. We don't want it that tall. For mine, I went with about 0.4, 0.41, just somewhere in that. Also check advanced, because we need a little bit more control. And for right now, we'll leave it at the default 1000, but we will be changing this later on. Go ahead and check random, and this will just, if you look from the top, let's see, now that actually looks fairly random, but yeah, there we go. If you turn off even distribution, you can see that jittered is not really that random. It looks quite, I don't know, normal. But if you turn on random and check even distribution, that doesn't seem to do anything. It's a little bit more random. Okay. And if you play with the normal, that does how long it is. We're actually going to come down into the render setting, and hit Object, and we're going to select that circle that we created. It's called a circle right now because it's kind of started as a circle, but it's kind of more of a tube. So anyway, it's kind of sitting on its side here, which is not what we want. So I'm going to hit Shift 2, hit Tab into Edit Mode, select those, hit period to set the pivot point to the 3D cursor, rotate Y 90 degrees. Nope. Let's try rotating along the X 90. Okay, rotate X negative 90, and as you can see now, they are sitting vertically. Now I'm going to hit Alt S because I want these a little bit thinner. Oops. Hit Control comma and then Alt S. No? Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to scale these down and then up along the Y. And then once we're done with that, we need to set the origin to the center there. It's pretty close here, but it's not quite perfect. So hit Shift S, cursor to selected, then tab out of edit mode, and then hold down Control, Alt, Shift, and C. And then just do origin to 3D cursor, and that will put that perfectly on this edge. Okay. So I'm going to head back over to the first render layer, and now we have a bunch of little spiky things. Okay, So that is perfect. However, they're too even. I'm actually going to turn this up. Let's go up to 10,000 maybe. I'm going to cut that maybe 5,000. Okay. For my final image, I did 15,000, but since I'm screencasting this, I don't know that my computer wants to have to handle that. So I'm going to keep it at 5,000 for editing, and then eventually we can kick that up to 15,000. Okay, so what do we need to do? First, if you notice, these are completely flat, and that looks kind of silly. It doesn't look at all natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a texture. So click New Texture, and I'm going to call this, actually we're going to put another texture right here. We'll call this the height map. And then this one is going to be a new one, and this one will just kind of put in some random levels so it's not so perfectly even. So let's see, that will be height noise maybe? Height noise. Yeah. And then if we go ahead and click this little preferences or properties button, we can actually go ahead and adjust that. Oops. Let's see. I'm just looking up my values that I need. Okay, so what this is going to be is a distorted noise. Unfortunately, we cannot see what the actual texture looks like anymore. In the old Blender render system, we could see kind of what it looked like, but not anymore. So let's go ahead. I'm going to change the influence first so that we can actually see how it's affecting. And as you can see, just immediately, it's really changing how this shows up. So I'm actually going to turn this down quite a bit. I'll turn it down to about 2.25, and as you can see, it's the height is roughly the same, but it has a lot of differences, and it's a little bit more random, which is exactly what we want. Now, we probably could have done that over here with the Brownian random size, but oh, hey, that does work. Cool. I don't remember that working before. Nifty. But anyway, this gives us a bit more control. So I'm going to go back over there and play with those. So now that we can actually see what it's doing, we can play around with it. And I actually used the Voronoi F1 for both of these. And let's see. I turned up distortion to 10. And turn this up to 0.1. And then this size down to 0.05. And really those values are just me playing around, trying to figure out what I want. And yeah, you get something that looks good, and yeah, it comes out well. And now what we want to do is we actually want this to be set to UV, but we don't have any UV coordinates set up, so I'm just going to hit Tab into Edit Mode, hit U. Where's U? There's U. Unwrap. I'm going to head over to the UV editor. Oops. There we go. And really, since it's just a plane, it's very simple. It's unwrapped right there perfectly. Okay, so let's head back over to the default and then set that to UV for the texture coordinates. And that just aligns that texture onto our plane. And I'm going to set that UV map. And then we can scale it up. And that will be fine. That should be it for this height noise map. Next, we will actually create the other height map. And this is an image. So image. And this too will be set to height. Let's see, what are the values on that? Yep, so length will be 1. So that's fine. All of these are fine. Let's set this to UV and then select that UV map. And really everything else is quite fine. Okay. So now we actually need to go over into GIMP and create the texture that we want. Now, while we're over in GIMP, it'll be kind of difficult to figure out how everything lines up. So what we want to do is we want to come back over to this UV editor and do, I think it's image, no, UVs, and we're trying to export this. So I'm going to create a new image and call this the height map. Okay, and click OK. What is it that I'm looking for? Export UV layout, and yeah, I'm gonna store this in, just save it somewhere, and I'm gonna call it, I don't know what, height or spine height layout, and just go ahead and export that. Then open up GIMP. I'm gonna move Blender out of the way. Okay, and now we're going to open up that image. So, where is that? Okay, and yeah, since it's perfectly sized already, we can just paint as we like on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the paint can, do the whole thing, fill whole selection, and there we go. So now we get to think about how we want this to look. The darker the color, the more indentation in the spine length, or the shorter the spine length will be. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this paintbrush and swap that out, and we can just increase the size, and let's have kind of a nice caldera thing going on over here. So make it dark, maybe turn up the opaque value. And just really, you can just paint this how you like it. Now, you don't want it to go completely black, because if it's completely black, then there will be no height on the, and you'll see that plane through the spikes, which isn't quite what you want. So that should be interesting. You'll have a bit of a higher area up here, and then some low stuff here, and maybe some more low stuff down there. That might be a bit too dark. I'm gonna go ahead and lighten that up just a little bit. There we go. Right there. There we go. And maybe we can have some things coming off of this. So I'm gonna swap those back to black. Just kind of keep painting. And then I'm going to grab the airbrush and just kind of... Oh, hey, I like that. I like that airbrush. And then we're going to have to come back over some of this with white and kind of lighten things up a bit, because it's a bit dark. Looks kind of like a rose, but it isn't. And then let's make this smaller. I'm going to turn this up. Okay, and I'm gonna increase the size here because yeah, you don't quite want these just bright white areas sitting everywhere because it won't look quite right, because the what is it? The spikes will all be exactly the same height, and it looks a little bit weird. Well, they won't be perfectly the same height because we got that distorted noise in there, but yeah, it's good just to have some detail. And now I'm going to come through with the white and just kind of lighten up some of these areas a little bit. So just through here. And then if you want, you can take this smudge tool and just kind of smudge things around a little bit. There we go. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and there we go. Control-Shift-E to export, and we're going to call this, yeah, that looks fine. It already exists, so I'm just going to click Replace and Export. Okay, let's pull Blender back over. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and open up that spine height layout, open image, and now let's head back over to default and select that image. Actually, we already have it loaded, so right there. And you can immediately see that it is affecting our spine heights. Awesome. So I'm gonna just adjust this. So it's a bit dark in there, so interesting. Now, if you notice, these particles actually get smaller as they get shorter, and I'm not really sure how to fix that because it's just the length, and we don't really have that many other things for us to adjust. That doesn't seem to do anything, and time really doesn't do anything either. So, oh well. I'm probably going to pull GIMP back up a little bit and lighten up some of these areas because they're pretty dark. So GIMP, there we go. And if you find that the whole thing is just too dark, you can create a new layer, and I'm going to call it Lighten. I'm going to set it to white, and I'm just going to change the opaque value, and something like that should be good. So there we go. Spine height layout, export, replace, and there we go. And now if we go ahead and reload that in Blender, reload, those are a little bit higher, maybe too high. Dang. I'm gonna go ahead and hide this one. So hide that. And really this is just kind of sitting down and playing with it and getting something that you like the look of. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera. So you can get a pretty cool effect with this. So GY, I mean, you can rotate the camera, move it out a bit. There we go. Give it a quick render, and we can start to see the nifty effect. And remember, we're going to be kicking this up from 5,000 to 15,000 little particles, which will fill in most of these little cracks through here. So let's go ahead and start thinking about lighting and materials. The light actually looks okay. It's a little dark for me, but it looks okay. We also want to take this and turn that all the way down. That'll make it pretty dark in here. I want to also convert this from a point lamp, and let's just bring in a sun lamp. Where are those? Down here. Okay. Oops. So, take that, like so. And I want the light to come in kind of from this direction, so I'm just going to bring it in like that. And let's see what it does. Really speckly because we have so few samples. I'm gonna quickly just turn that up a little bit. Let's see where the samples. There they are. So I'm gonna turn that up to 50 and give that another render. Okay, we can see stuff again. Huzzah. Now, sometimes we get these overlapping a bit more than I would like. I haven't figured out how to get rid of the overlapping completely, but if we come down and, let's see, is it field weights? No. Render? No. There's a self effect right there. And let's see, if we change this, that didn't do anything. Jittered seems to have less self-effect, or what is the word? Intersection? Yeah. So jittering has less intersection, but it isn't random. And I don't know. You can try playing with different settings. I went with random for my original, but I might go with jittered for this one. Now one of the issues with hair particles is that they take forever to render, because there are so many objects out here. And it's very easy to make this number absolutely massive. Whereas if you were to just simply go through and place every circle, it wouldn't be as long, because I don't think I'd have the patience to put down 5,000 circles all over this stupid plane. So yeah, that's actually a very different look. I'm gonna crank this up to 10,000. And it starts to fill in a bit more. I don't know if you can hear it, but my computer's going crazy right now. So, yeah, that's looking okay. Yeah, that looks fine. You can see some of those cracks that we put in over in this area. You see some of those dimples. you can kind of see this guy, right, this valley here, and you can pretty easily see the caldera. And then over here you've got that other crack coming in, and it looks quite nifty. And then what I like to do, or what I did, was I actually turned the plane into an emission, and it emits blue light between these. And since well, I actually did it also based off of the height map. So the places where there is no influence, where it's completely white, there is no light coming through, it's just black. And these lower areas, there's more blue light being shown through. So let's go ahead and actually start playing with that material. So I'm going to pop over here, create a new material. Let's open up the preview. I'm going to set it to plane, and I'm going to call this base because it's the base there. And we're going to go ahead, I'm actually going to hit this plus button and call this new thing materials. And I'm not going to have it do a render view quite yet, but well, maybe I will. Let's split that view. Maybe my computer will be able to handle this. There we go. Yeah, it should be able to handle that. Okay, and I'm going to set this to a node editor. So right now we have just a diffuse node. Very boring, very easy. I don't want that. Let's get a mix node, a mix shader node. Plug that in. Go ahead and grab the image texture. And then we're going to pull in our height map, and this will be the influence on what material, because we're going to have a diffuse node and an emission node plugged into there. So I'm going to plug the color in, because this isn't really a color, it's black and white, so it's fine to act as a factor. And then let's go ahead and grab that emission node. So emission, that should go in the top, and as you can see, let's not leave that view, right there where there is more indentation, we have a lot more emission, and you can kind of see that right here on this preview, and it really is a nifty effect. And then I'm just gonna change the color maybe. Well, I'm also gonna increase the value to 5 and change the color to kind of an electric blue, like that. And because of how Cycles works, this actually starts to almost give a foggy effect, which is really kind of cool. And then I'm also going to bring in a diffuse node. So I guess we couldn't have, or we could have gotten away with not actually deleting that. But there we go. So that's a pretty nifty thing. And then I'm going to turn this one into black, just so that it's clean. Yeah. Okay. So that's working out pretty well. Going to create a new material. Let's see. Let's call these the spines. So spines or crystals. I'm not really sure what they'd be called, because I guess they're crystals. And then come down here to something or other. Rendered? Yeah. Hey. Oh, right. This one needs a material, and this is going to be the spines. If we were just using normal particles, we'd be using this one to set the spines, or the material for the spines, but we're not, so I'm just gonna leave it as materials. So let's go ahead and bring that guy in. Okay. And let's look up the material values. There they are. So what we need is there we go. There we go. Okay. So that was just a diffuse node. I held down Control, and then if you just use your left mouse button, you can get kind of a knife tool and you can cut nodes all you want. So let's leave in the mix node, or the diffuse. We'll use it later. Grab a mix node and just plug that in. And then I'm going to take this guy and plug it in the top. Oops, there we go. And then we want a glossy shader as well. Plug that one in the bottom. And that will give us that reflection off the top that I'm looking for. And I'm actually going to turn this down pretty low to maybe 0.25. Well, maybe a bit more. Let's also turn this down to being fairly dark. And I want this to be a bit lower. So there we go. It's still pretty, it's too dark. Let's go ahead and, oops. There you go. Let's see. I'm gonna turn this up a bit. And just play with that until you get something that fits your fancy. Maybe turn that up to 1, get some nice reflection over everything. Yeah, there we go. Computer's working away like crazy right now, and I don't blame it. It's a lot of work. Okay, yes. Okay. So we can't really see what's going on that well. Let's try giving a quick render, and that looks terrible. What's going on? Come on, computer. Where are my particles? Where'd they go? You guys, come back. Well, that's a bummer. The particles all just disappeared. What? I don't think I've ever had this before. Let's move this out of the way. Try again. No. There. Nothing. I'm going to pause this and try to figure out where my particles went. Well, I had to restart Blender and they all came back. I'm not really sure what happened. Those are much longer than they should be. And those are much shorter than they should be. I think that should be 1. No. Oh, cool. They kind of are related. 0.5, 0.9, no, not 4, 1, 2. Let's just give that a quick render check. Yeah, that was really weird. Not a clue what happened. Anyway, it's rendering okay now. I don't know, you can kind of see what's going on there. There we go. I don't like those as much. Not. It's much flatter. And I think I know why. Yeah, I turned off this one's length control. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's a bit better. And we get this really cool, evil blue color coming up from the middle of the earth or whatever. And sometimes you get spots where you can still see all the way through to the plane, and if they're small, it'll be okay. The blue color will hide it and make it look really cool. But I mean, well, like this spot, for example. I'm not sure where that is on here exactly. Somewhere over here, I guess. But when we go over into the compositor, this will turn into a nice star and give a really cool effect. So anyway, even though it's got really low samples, this is getting pretty close to how we want it. I'm going to come over into the compositor now and do a little bit of work on the image before we go ahead and set up for our final render, because we are actually almost there. So let's see what that actually is supposed to look like. Okay, so we're gonna do some stuff. First, I kind of want a oh man, what is the word? Tilt shift look. And what a tilt shift look does is it basically blurs the top and bottom, I'd say about a third of the image, and then it just has the center line be perfectly in focus. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually pop back over to the scene and select our camera. First I want to get this thing all aligned exactly how I want it. Z. There we go. And I think we can see what's going on there. I'm also going to set the camera. Let's see. I guess. How does that look? Nah. Just select a camera that looks good. I like this one, if I recall. The Nikon DX settings. Give a nice kind of nifty effect. Okay, and I like that because the lens can actually get most of the image, or most of our plane. So I don't know, I kind of like it. Anything else? Yes, we need to set the focus. So turn on limits, and then just slide this distance up right over to there, so that it's basically right on top of those crystals, and then change the aperture radius setting to f-stop, and then set that down to a really low number like 0.5, and then if we give that a quick render, it actually won't be that quick, but well, our samples are kind of low. So we probably won't be able to see the effect too much. Well, you can kind of see how that's getting a bit more blurry than up here, but these are really blurry still. So yeah, it'll be fine. Okay, and actually in my final image I used GIMP to create a thing to help out. So let's come back over to GIMP. I'm going to click Control N. That'll bring this up, and I'm going to create a new image in the same size as the final render, so that'll be 1920 by 1080. And what I'm going to do is we're going to create a bilinear gradient. And let's see, we want to invert that. So where it's black will be in focus, and where it gets lighter will be out of focus. So I'm going to save this, call it tilt shift, Control Shift E to export. Just export that, and it'll go along and do that for us. Let's bring it back Blender and go over to the compositor again and bring in, there we go. And to make this a large window, just hit Shift and then space, and that'll toggle the size of the window. And when you do that, it's whichever window your mouse is over. So I'm going to go ahead and Shift A, bring in an image. Just go ahead and open that, bring in Tilt Shift, and then since I want this to stretch nicely, or to scale nicely, I'm going to bring in a scale. Yeah. Image, set that to render size, and it should be fine. Should be fine now. And then we're going to go ahead and bring in a blur node. So blur. Leave that in as Gaussian, and I'm going to do variable size and relative. I'll show you what that does. Oops, there we go. So right now, relative, or having relative unchecked, will have you set the number of pixels that it's blurring on. Relative is a percent. This one, when you go and change the resolution of your image, you will, the effect will actually change. When it's relative, the effect won't change, and that is good. So let's see, probably 1% maybe? Yeah. Hey guys, you wanna blur that? Yeah. So you can start to see that blurring. And if you uncheck variable size, it will just kind of blur the whole thing. Okay, so what we do is we're having this basically it's affecting how big the blur is, and where it's black, it's not blurry at all. Okay, so now I want to start giving us ghosts and glares and some nifty extra filters that make it look really cool. So let's go ahead and bring in let's bring in some glares. So here's a glare, and I want streaks, and we can start to see some of those streaks popping up there. I'm going to bring it down to 2, and let's see, bring up mix to 1 so that we can see just the streaks, and bring down the threshold to 0.4, and that way we get everything. And yeah, this is looking pretty good. I'm going to turn up the quality. The iterations up to 4, and that should be good. Now I'm going to duplicate that, bring in the normal image, and I'm going to set it to fog glow. Let's take a look at what that looks like now. mix, set it to 0. Turn the threshold down to 0.1. So basically everything will get the glow. And yeah, this should be fine. And then if we go ahead and bring in a mix node, I'm going to set that to add, connect that to this guy and this guy. And now we start to get all of those streaks right in there. That's a bit much. I'm going to turn that down maybe a little bit. Okay, and then bring in another glare. Let's just pop that back into there. And I'm going to turn on ghosts and turn up mix to 1. Oh man, it's crazy. Set that threshold to 0.9, and that'll just darken things up a bit. Turn up iterations, and yeah, that should be okay. It'll create kind of a fun, foggy, glowy effect. And we won't actually connect that to anything quite yet. Okay. Get out of the way, compositor. Okay. So I'm going to then disconnect that from there, connect our add to our blur node, and now we have all of those extra effects and the cool glare, blur, blare. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And then we want another add node, and we're gonna add, let's see, the top goes in, the bottom goes into the blur, and the top goes into that glare, that fog glare. And let's turn up the add to 1. And you probably won't be able to notice it that much, but it's in there. And then what I want to do is I want to bring in a color balance wheel. So color balance. And this gives us some control over the luminosity, or yeah, the lift, gamma, and gain. So the lift, if I recall, does basically the whole image. Or is it just the dark? Might be just the dark. You usually have lightness, the mid-range, and the dark. I don't remember. Oh no. But anyway, let's just play around. See what this... Yeah, this one seems to have little effect. And then I'm just going to turn this up to blue. So just play around with these and get them to look good. Or at the very least, make it how you want to look, how you want it to look. And then, since I want some color variation, I'm going to bring in a texture, and I'm going to call it, well, we have to go over to textures. Let's see. And I'm going to create a new texture, and I'm going to call it splotchy. Splotchy. And set it over to color. Yeah, those are okay. And that's basically fine. Yeah. And then I want the size to be about 2. That way it's larger and it'll fit over the whole image more nicely. And this nobla, whatever that is, should be 0.1, and the depth we can just leave alone. And I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this guy, connect that down there, and set this one to color value, and nothing, because we don't have splotchy turned on. So that's what splotchy will do, and it'll just put that color over the image, and that's really strong, but you can see we get nice reds and blues and colors going on. It's crazy. But yeah, it creates kind of a nifty little effect. Let's disconnect this one and connect it over to the output of that color. And then I'm actually going to set this to 1080p. Let's see, anything else? I'm going to leave that alone. Final. Let's see, what was my final? I did 100 in final mode, which is actually like 10,000. Yeah, 10,000. Also, we should turn up the number of hair particles. We're more or less done at this point. We're just, oops, I don't want 100,000, just 15,000. There we go. And they disappear. Anyway, yeah, we're pretty well done. Anything else? Any last minute things? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I'll just start rendering that, and of course it loses everything. So I'm gonna pause this, bring it back, and basically start rendering, and then I can pause it again and show you guys what it looks like after we're done. Okay, so now we start rendering. So quick F12, and be prepared for this to take forever. Now you may want to actually start by playing around with some of these high sample sections and just make sure that it still works nicely in the compositor. So I guess after these get done, in a little bit, we can stop it and see what it looks like in the compositor. Yeah, that's probably enough to do a quick check. So back to previous. Hello. There we are. And yeah, you don't get the fireflies as from before, which makes sense, because a lot more samples, a lot fewer fireflies, a lot fewer just rough colors. So yeah, that looks fine. So yeah, just finish rendering it and should be good. Here is my final layout. I adjusted a few things since not everything is the same for every render. My advice to you is to play around with the compositor nodes. The color balance node can really change the feel of a scene, so that would be the one that I'd play around with the most. Also, adjusting the amount of blur will change the tilt shift effect. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please like it and share it with your friends. If not, let me know why in the comment section below.